Good morning, or should I say buongiorno. This is Steffy and welcome back to the Financial Fox, investing and innovation ideas with a twist. Today, we are going to talk about the next generation of the internet with my guest, Bruno Skvorc, blockchain developer, writer, and technical educator at the Web3 Foundation. We are going to discuss decentralization versus centralized internet, blockchain, data security and ownership, how the web is building and also guaranteeing trust in the system. We are going to discuss decentralized apps, NFTs, they are so in fashion, and also the Web3 Foundation and its mission to building the next generation of the free people's internet. But before we kick off, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels, follow us on social media to stay up to date with our news and also engage in conversation. Every week, we will bring to you a new interview with a leading crypto or market expert to discuss innovation, the world of cryptocurrency, investment, and finance. And also, it's very important to remember that I'm not a financial advisor and the content here is only for education and information purposes only. But let's get into the interview with Bruno. I really enjoy our chat and I'm sure that you're going to do as well. Hi, Bruno. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it is great to have you on the show. So perhaps, you are a technical educator at the Web3 Foundation, you are a writer, you are a developer. Maybe it would be great if you can give us just some information about your background and how you get involved in the future of the internet, let's say, and building applications.
In a past life, I was a web developer. Then I started with Ethereum in 2015 when it launched. And for the next few years or so, I focused on bringing Web3 based education to Web2 developers, basically showing my old colleagues from the Web2 world that Web3 was not scary and that they can also develop on blockchain. They just have to think about it as a different kind of database. And so I did the education for a while. I launched a bunch of projects, both blockchain related and not. Those are all on my GitHub. But then later on, like 3 years later, I got hired by Status to work on Ethereum 2.0 as a technical writer. And then a year or so after that, I went to the Web3 Foundation to be their technical educator. And that's basically it. I've been there ever since.
No, impressive. So listen, I think it will be great if we could kind of articulate the concept of what is Web3, right? Because, it's very different from Web 1, Web 2, but I'm sure that not everybody out there actually understand, the reality and what really means and how it's different from the current system that we have in place today.
Yeah, for sure. Web3 is at its core about disintermediation. So whereas if you want to send a message today through Facebook Messenger, you send it by kindly asking Facebook's servers to relay that message for you. So you go to Facebook and you say, Facebook, would you please send this message to my grandma? And then Facebook says, sure, let me just check how much I like you. And if they like you, then they will send your message. The same thing works with your bank. If you go to your bank and you want to send money to someone, you don't send money to them directly. You go to the bank and say, hey, bank, can you, for me, send this bit of money to somebody else in somebody else's account? And then if they like you, they'll say yes. If they don't like you, they'll say no. And in some cases, even close your account if they don't like you enough. So these intermediaries are at the core of the problem because they take up a lot of the power in all of the systems that we use. So we have gotten very used to some luxuries. Like we have all of this digital infrastructure that lets us, publish our content worldwide, send money whenever we want with PayPal, rent out apartments without ever meeting a person we're renting to with Airbnb, summon a vehicle whenever we need it and it'll be there and it'll take us somewhere else with Uber. But all of these centralized providers of services, they're not only middlemen that take a fee that we don't like to lose, but they're also incredible honeypots of data and information that when it ends up in the wrong hands can be quite dangerous. I mean, we all know that Facebook has a new data leak every month, and they're so frequent that we don't even notice anymore. Nobody even blinks anymore that their private data has once again been completely leaked online.
And the funny thing is that the default of your account is already said, share your data, share your location. People, they don't actually think they can do something to own their data and to see if they want to share it or not.
Yeah. And so, well, in a nutshell, Web3 allows you to send a message to anybody from anywhere at any time during any part of the day in any place in the world and be absolutely sure that they will receive that message. And that message can be just a hello, it can be money, or it can be content that somebody else doesn't want you to see, like the Chinese firewall. So all of these methods of communication prevention, so financial censorship, information censorship, they don't work against blockchain. And Web3 is more than just blockchain. Blockchain just adds a layer of trust on top of the data that's already there. So if you take into account that Web3 is like this three-part thing. Part one is linked data so that different machines in the world can understand each other's data without us needing to translate it for them. So if my computer can talk to your computer, I don't have to be in between to translate between the two programs. That's linked data. Distributed data is the ability to get data from any machine in the network. So not only do you understand it, but you can also get it. And these two things we've already had for a long time. These are basically torrents. So torrents, when you download a torrent, you're connecting to a ton of machines who are all interconnected, understand each other's data information because they're sharing this one protocol, this BitTorrent protocol, and they can all share this information with you. So it's distributed. What blockchain adds into this mix is trust. So you can now be sure that the torrent you're downloading is absolutely legit and verified to be exactly what you're looking for. And so what we've built with blockchain in general on inside of this Web3 is one big global database of truth, where while somebody can write a lie into this database, nobody can say that it's not written there. So data that goes into this database is available to everybody and cryptographically verifiable to be there. So nobody can lie that something is not there, that something wasn't there. It's all provable, it's all transparent, and it's all accessible to everybody. And this is why it's such a paradigm shift, because whatever you put onto the blockchain and whatever you make accessible through this Web3 set of protocols, this is automatically accessible to everybody who connects to these protocols. And there's no way to not get connected if you try. So there's no way to stop you. And this is what Web3 is all about. Just basically disintermediation, removing intermediaries and letting people interact with each other and with protocols without having to ask intermediaries for permission.
Okay, so you mentioned a very important point that people are going to be able to communicate between each other without intermediary, right? So we are going to bring here another important point, which is about empowerment of individuals, right? Because their responsibility obviously become bigger because, if they lose their private key or they don't have the centralized, entity they can trust, because they have to trust the system and themselves. And then we have to also talk about community, the importance to build community to move a protocol forward as well. So perhaps even governance is something to talk about here. How do you see the individual, the community play around in the Web3?
Well, it's a tricky situation for most. And when people talk about Web3 and individuals' access to it and individuals' perception of it, it's naive to think that everybody is going to transition to Web3. What we in Web3 want to enable is the option for is the option for everybody to transition if they want to. But we don't want everybody to transition because most people are not ready to be their own bank. They're not ready to maintain their own cryptographic security, their cryptographic keys, and they're not ready to be to take the risk of managing their data and their finance onto themselves because they're simply unqualified to do this. And so for them, the custodials that they're used to will still be very useful. But should they dedicate some months to educating themselves, to getting some basic financial hygiene and understanding of the new protocols? In that case, I think Web3 will be beneficial to everybody. But what people need to be aware of is that while the community is very strong and there's a sense of community when you look at the protocols and things that are being built and the protocols interacting with each other, it is still very much every man for himself in blockchain land, precisely because you are the sole custodian of your private keys that let you access your wallet. So it's two things at once. It's very lonely in a way where you have to be your own master of all the keys and values, but it's also very community oriented where you have this enormous community of apps, developers, interactions, and everything, so that you actually, even though you are kind of alone in all of this, you have access to much more than you ever would have as part of the regular society in the old world. So it's a very interesting dynamic that a lot of people are not used to, and it's going to take some getting to used to it.
So you are a technical educator. We are basically saying here that education is a challenge, but it's a challenge that actually should be overcome. As a technical educator, what's your approach to education, and what would you say to the people that are actually out there, but they are not skilled enough and they don't want to lose, they don't want to miss into this new, this new ecosystem that is developing slowly?
The most important pointer I can give to everybody who's not familiar with blockchain at all, and that's the first rule of blockchain, is that if anybody is trying to get you to buy something, it's a scam. Nobody will talk you into trying to buy something. Whoever does, they're trying to scam you. They're trying to extract value from you. So that's rule number one. Do not buy anything that's advertised. Do not buy education packages. Do not buy coins that require you to invite other people. Do not buy coins just because somebody says they're going to change the world. What you have to do is you have to put in the time. If you don't put in the time, you're not going to have a good time. You have to research. You have to add mileage to your skill set. You cannot just read something in one afternoon and feel safe about it. You will get scammed. This is a new industry. And just like the Wall Street sharks would eat you alive if you were trying to trade today without experience there, the blockchain is a far more dangerous ocean, and you probably shouldn't swim in it unless you have either very good experience or good weapons. So stay away from trying to invest until you truly understand what's going on. I know it's very easy to feel like you're missing out on things, especially as the market is going up. But trust me when I tell you that a 100% loss is way bigger than a 50% gain that you can get by investing in the right gamble. So that's advice number one. And as a technical educator, my job is basically to not talk about investment at all. But I had to put this disclaimer out there because a lot of people just want to get in to make money, which is definitely the wrong approach. It's possible to make money, but don't count on just gambling. This is gambling. What most people are thinking about is gambling. The market is not rational. Absolute garbage that should not have value has a lot of value, and amazing projects that have a lot of value, intrinsic value, do not have the coin value. So don't rely on prices. Don't gamble like this. This is what you're thinking is a casino. But as a technical educator, my job is to basically copy paste. So I copy knowledge from some people's heads and paste it into other people's heads. And my job is to make it simpler to understand the technical aspects of blockchain, so that people understand what they're interacting with and why. This is not for everybody. This is mainly for, I would say primarily for developers, but also for enthusiasts. Definitely not for civilians. I mean, I try to educate civilians as much as I can because it's just useful stuff to know. But just like somebody doesn't need to know how MySQL works because they're using Facebook, which runs on MySQL, most people don't need to know how blockchain works in order to effectively use some blockchain service. However, I do like to increase the general literacy of the pool of people that are interested in this, if nothing else, then to prevent scams. Because when more people are literate in what's going on and more people can do their own research, the scams are way more easy to expose and avoid ultimately. But yeah, to your point, education is hard. It is very difficult in today's short attention span era to keep somebody's attention long enough to really explain something. And especially when everybody's like so pressed for time, nobody has time anymore. Everybody just wants to get results quickly. When I was first starting out with blockchain, I had zero knowledge about it. I quit all of my jobs as web developer, and I spent the first year just learning. I know most people can't do that because they don't have, a year's worth of salary to skip to spend on learning. But this is how I progressed really quickly. So if you just take a few months, if you just take a few hours per day to just learn and don't do anything else, but just learn, just read as much as you can, then you will get somewhere within 6 months. You will be literate enough to recognize every scam out there. And you will also start understanding the technology. And this will also lead you to understand what you can build, what you should build, why, and how you can build it. And so this I think, is a key element here. When educating, people cannot just be educated. They have to be willing to put in their own time, their own effort, because this is one of the most complicated computer science areas that's come out in decades, and it is extremely difficult to master. So I would say just put in your time and do not hesitate to reach out to people who know what they're talking about. Nobody is going to, if somebody blows you off because you're asking questions that you can't find out the answer to, that's their loss, because they're obviously a bad educator and they are not out there to help people. If you get stuck on anything, just get in touch with me. I'll give you resources, what to read, what to learn from. And I can give you pointers on where to go and where not to go, and what resources are good and what resources are bad. But don't jump in blindly hoping it'll work out, because most of the time it doesn't. Try to spend as much time as you can learning first.
Okay, that's a fantastic advice. Listen, we mentioned the Web3 Foundation, but we haven't actually talked about the mission, what they are doing, how they are supporting projects, what they are creating, and they basically position a role within the development of the broader Web3. Do you maybe want to spend a couple of words to explain what is the Web3 and what you are working on?
Yeah, sure. So the Web3 Foundation is a foundation in Switzerland that is dedicated to building a system that can enable all the blockchains that exist out there right now to talk to each other. So right now you have a blockchain like Bitcoin, which can basically do nothing. So Bitcoin is a blockchain where you have coins that can only move themselves. And you can compare this to having a barrel of gasoline. And the only thing you can spend that gasoline on is to move that barrel somewhere else. And that's it. You can't use it for anything else. And so Bitcoin is kind of useless. And it's not really progressing technology-wise, but it has a lot of value. And then you have something like Ethereum, which is leading the world in all of blockchain research and development, has a thriving DeFi and NFT ecosystem, and is basically a system for composing new financial primitives on top of each other and reinventing the finance that we've worked for 100 years in the real world, reinventing it all in just a few years on Ethereum. And so this is a system that's moving so quickly that if you just sit outside of it for 2 years, you'll be completely unfamiliar with it once you come back in. That's how fast it evolves. And so, but it doesn't have the liquidity or the volume that Bitcoin does. And so it would be really useful to put some of that volume from Bitcoin into Ethereum to put that money to use. Because in Ethereum, you can use applications that basically allow you to earn interest on top of the capital that you have. You can loan out the capital that you have to others. You can use it as collateral for different things. There's a lot of things you can do with capital that you have. And so there are ways to make them communicate where you would connect the two blockchains with a very specific bridge. And this bridge is, there are several types of bridges, but they require their own security. That means that like you have miners in Bitcoin and you have miners in Ethereum, and then you need the equivalent of miners for that bridge. And so the pool of people who are running this software to secure these systems is getting diluted because you're getting more and more different systems where each needs its own set of miners or validators and so on, and nobody can run all of them. So it's getting diluted by definition. And the more bridges there are that are different from everything, the more diluted this set gets. What's more, this only connects Bitcoin and Ethereum. And you can't connect another chain to this without also building a very specific bridge to that. And then you need to dilute the pool further. Again, this bridge needs to be additionally secured. And so this makes interconnectivity between blockchains very difficult. What we do at the Web3 Foundation, we are developing a blockchain called Polkadot and its Canary cousin, Canary test network, on which we experiment with this technology first, called Kusama. And what these chains do is they just allow other blockchains to talk to each other through this relay chain. We call it a relay chain. Polkadot or Kusama are relay chains. They talk through this chain. And why is this like a good thing, better than the bridges? Well, because once you connect something like Bitcoin to Polkadot and then something like Ethereum to Polkadot, they're connected through a hub, which now lets each blockchain share its features with everything else that's already connected to the hub. And so if I just add another blockchain like Monero into this mix, then immediately both Bitcoin and Ethereum will inherit Monero's anonymity features, and Monero will automatically inherit Ethereum's smart contract features because they're now connected to each other through this one system. And so with every new connected chain, the feature set grows exponentially because every chain in the set gets the features that the new chain is bringing into the mix. And so this is basically what we're developing. We're developing chains that let other chains talk to each other. We're developing an internet of blockchains where the blockchains can cooperate and collaborate, and where you can compose applications for Web3 across all of these different blockchains. So you can have one application where you go straight from Bitcoin into Monero to launder your Bitcoin, and then put cleaned Bitcoin into Ethereum to gain interest on it or something like that. And so this is what the Web3 Foundation is doing. And we do this by funding the development of the Polkadot implementation, which is done by Parity, a development company in Berlin. And we're also giving out grants left and right to other teams, not just to build this protocol per se, but also to build chains that will connect to this protocol, to build tools that will help people use these chains and connect them, to build educational resources, to host events, and a lot of other things. So we're basically a foundation that is looking to put itself out of business by giving away all of the money to people who will dramatically expand our ecosystem. And we aim to be basically replaced by on-chain treasuries of both Polkadot and Kusama. So these chains, they have a treasury that automatically refills itself. The more people use the chain, the more it refills itself. It takes away the majority of the transaction fees. And so as these treasuries grow, people can apply for grants to the chain treasuries themselves rather than the Web3 Foundation. So you have multiple ways of getting funded in this Web3 ecosystem, from the chains or from Web3 Foundation. And as we give away the foundation's money to the grantees, the goal is that the ecosystem will grow so strong that the treasuries of the chains will be able to replace the treasury of the foundation and then continue giving out grants in perpetuity to everybody who wants to join the ecosystem.
Brilliant. Sounds a really ambitious project, but I'm really glad that you mentioned the element of interoperability because, you know, it looks like what basically you believe is that the future is not going to be a success of one party or one chain, but it's going to be a mix of different chain, maybe specialized on something, but all working together.
Yeah, exactly. So we are very much multi-chain oriented. And this is precisely why, for example, Polkadot does not have smart contracts. So it doesn't want to compete with chains that have smart contracts. Instead, it just wants to enable them to talk to other chains. And so if we manage to connect Bitcoin and Ethereum trustlessly, that's a huge win. And if we manage to connect Ethereum to something else, that's a huge win. And then if we have our own chains connected to Polkadot, that's a huge win for everybody because they all get the features of all the chains that are connected. And we just really want to enable this future of application-specific chains. So on Ethereum right now, when Ethereum 2 comes out, it's going to have these shards, these mini Ethereums that are all connecting to a central Ethereum chain. The problem there is that every one of these shards is logically identical to what Ethereum is. That means that the logic you can execute on these shards is basically the same as on the main Ethereum chain. And that means that you have the same limitations, no custom contracts, no custom logic, and so on, which is good for most cases, but sometimes you need specificity. And so if you come up with a chain that is very application specific, like a blockchain that drives just a very popular video game like World of Warcraft or something, that obviously will have different logic than what Ethereum or another chain could support right now. But because we have this functionality that lets any chain connect to Polkadot, this means that we can connect chains that are as custom as they need to be. So people can build a chain that's extremely specialized for a simple use case, but it still shares the security of the entire Polkadot network and then connects to everything else. So my World of Warcraft chain can actually be co-secured by Polkadot and all the chains connected on it. And then I can also actually ensmarten my in-game characters of World of Warcraft with Ethereum smart contracts. And maybe I can sell my World of Warcraft character on an Ethereum decentralized exchange because they're connected now.
Yeah, that's really very clear. Listen, is there any specific application that you are excited about, or any specific area, use case that you think is going to be maybe underexplored yet, but it could have lots of potential?
Well, at the risk of sounding like I'm just jumping on a bandwagon, I'm going to say NFTs because they are really turning the world of digital ownership upside down. It's really refreshing to see this concept leak into the mainstream and celebrities, Oscars, and brands starting to adopt it. That's great, but they are still very much at the level of a digital dust gathering thing. So you put it into your wallet and it's just gathering digital dust. It does nothing. It's $1 million JPEG image that does nothing. This is why I'm very dedicated to a project about NFTs on Polkadot's ecosystem, and this is why that's an area that I think is underexplored and where we have a lot of room to innovate, and we plan to innovate dramatically in the near future. I think they have the potential to change the coming metaverse future that's upon us. So by the time we're ready to pop in lens to our eye and see the augmented reality world around us, NFTs will be in control of that augmented reality for sure.
Okay, tell us a little bit more about the NFT project that you are, you have started with Polkadot, because I think that is going to be really interesting. Also, the way that you see the key value of NFT as utility, and I think that's. Perhaps, as you said, is not really understood right now. It's more about, is a bunch of info, and that's what it is. But that is not really the best value of an NFT.
Yeah. I'm disappointed by the lack of innovation in NFTs in the last, 3 years. They've all been almost exclusively just images or media files that you just download and then kind of own, but not really do anything with. And that's why when I noticed that the NFT madness was ramping up again last year in August, I mentioned the Kusama blockchain. So the Kusama blockchain is like a copy of Polkadot, Polkadot's code, but everything moves 4 times faster there, so that the governance parameters and all the logic can be tested before being deployed on Polkadot. But it's not a test net. It's like an experiment. It has value. The tokens have value, and it's launching very real, very permanent projects. But why is it a Canary network? Well, because we couldn't really make a test network because there's no incentive to attack a test network. If you want to prove that a protocol is attackable, then you have to reward the attacker somehow. And so if somebody attacks Kusama successfully, they can extract a lot of value from it. And that price is very, very high right now. So the reward for attacking Kusama successfully is very, very high. And this is what we are banking on with Kusama in general. So like make it appealing to attackers, but also it gained a life of its own. So it kind of split off from Polkadot and is now it's now like a art focused blockchain with cypherpunk tendencies and branding, and it's very experimentation friendly. And so when I noticed that NFT craze ramping up, I figured it would be a real shame if Kusama, being what it became, the RT blockchain and everything, if it missed out on the NFT craze. And so even though Kusama didn't have smart contracts, I came up with a protocol called Remark, RMRK, which basically hacks NFTs onto Kusama. And it does this with the help of Graffiti, where you basically send a transaction with some custom message in it that has no meaning to the blockchain itself. But then Remark is a set of rules and specifications on how to interpret those messages. And so our tools are looking at those graffiti and just extracting value from them. So they are basically pretending NFTs are there and seeing NFTs where they are not on the blockchain, but they actually are on the blockchain. It's hard to explain, but basically they're hacked onto Kusama. And so a few months ago, we formed a full-time team around this Remark standard to really drive it forward and build UIs and tools for it and everything that has to go along with it. And there are two major downsides to using NFTs this way. One is that you have to use an archive node, which means that you have to collect all the messages, all the graffiti from the past, and then collect them into one set and then squash them so that you know what the final truth is. For example, if you see that somebody sold a token yesterday, you can't really know that that sale is valid if you're not aware if that token existed before. And the proof of that token's existence is not listed on the chain. It's in one of those graffiti in the past. And that's why you have to grab all the graffiti from the past and then like process them from the beginning. Now, this is really a really fast operation, but as Kusama grows, so will the range of the graffiti that you have to synchronize. And so the thing will become slower and slower and slower. That's not good. And the other problem is that there's a double buy issue where you can actually, if two people buy the same thing at the same time, the seller will get paid twice and we cannot refund the second buyer because we have no smart contracts. And so for the past few months, my team has been building tools to protect against these downsides. And I'd say we did a pretty good job because we've built a system that effectively avoids these downsides. And we've been testing it in production on a product called Kanaria. And Kanaria is the world's first NFT ICO launchpad, where you basically can configure your own CryptoPunks-like collection and instantly list it for sale. And people can buy your unique items. And what we're doing there is we are using this as a fundraiser to make the team autonomous and to fund it. But at the same time, we're using it as a tech demo for the NFT ICO launchpad so that people know what's possible. But most importantly, we're using it to test drive our technology. So as people buy these eggs that we're selling, I'll get to that in a bit. But as people buy these eggs that we're selling, they're actually testing this functionality, this protection against double buys, the synchronization speed, and so on. And because Remark has certain features that are not seen anywhere else in the NFT world, like you can emote on NFTs, so you can send them emoticons, and your NFT can react to these emoticons. So if you, for example, have an NFT that's a digital painting of a moon, and people send it 50 rocket emojis, then a rocket can land on that moon. So now you have reactive art, reactive NFTs. Then you have NFTs that can own other NFTs. So you can think of it as an in-game character having a backpack or having a, equipment. And NFTs can trade NFTs with other NFTs. And then there's also NFTs being governed by the community. So every NFT can be split into fungible tokens. So different people can have a different amount of tokens representing a single NFT, and then they can collectively vote on decisions that NFT is going to make. And so there's a bunch of other stuff like multi-resource NFTs that, like if I upload an NFT of a video game, it can have at the same time the code of the video game, a high resolution cover for the video game, and a PDF of a manual on how to play that game. And depending on where you load it, like if you load it in your browser, it's going to start playing. If you load it in OpenSea, it's going to show the cover. And if you load it in, a PDF reader, it's going to show you the manual. And so if you put all of this together, we've come up with art Legos, where you can compose these different primitives of NFTs that we've built into highly complex and evolving NFTs that will change as the landscape around them also evolves. And we were able to do this on Remark because we don't have any old school standards to adhere to. Nothing is holding us back. And so we can iterate really quickly and do something really, really interesting. But basically, Kanaria is the testing ground for all of this. And we're building Kanaria as something where people can try all of this functionality out. People have already gone crazy with the emotes and sent a ton of emotes to the digital eggs. And Kanaria is actually selling these limited edition digital eggs, which will hatch birds. And the birds' look will depend on which emotes the egg got. And once the birds hatch, they will bring their owners permanent platform bonuses and benefits. So for example, if we one day launch an auction house, which collects a 2% fee for everything you sell, if you have a bird that has a trait which says free auction house, then you will not be forced to pay that fee in the auction house. Then if we partner up with a decentralized exchange like SushiSwap may give you a boost to your earnings based on which bird you have. If you have the bird that has their trait and so on. So this is an evolving NFT that you can change and equip with different things later on, and that you can optimize as you use the blockchain space. So this is an NFT that you're meant to interact with regularly. And this is something that's not possible on platforms like Ethereum right now, particularly because of the fees. Like a single emote sent on Ethereum would cost like $150. That's obviously not really acceptable. But in this case, we have this set of fully extensible, evolving, reactive NFTs built on one standard. And we're also already in a bunch of partnerships with native NFT platforms so that we will co-deploy our NFTs there as well. So like Unique Network will also get our NFTs, our nested NFT functionality and all of the other stuff that I mentioned. Moonbeam as well and other stuff, and Ethereum as it connects to Kusama and so on. So this is basically what we're doing. It's an experimentation in smart contract-less NFTs that can do much more than most other platforms, NFT platforms can do with smart contracts.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting, even though it's quite complicated, to explain. Do you maybe want to, what I would like to understand a little bit better is how you create these eggs. And I understand they contain kind of different utility, ability, and it depends. It's kind of like a package. So how do you create the utility in the eggs? So how do you create the egg, basically?
Yeah, so the Remark standard has these defined messages that when you send them, they mean something. And so one of those is mint NFT. And that message just creates an NFT. And so we minted 9,999 eggs already, and they are on the platform. People can buy them. So we minted these eggs, and they are just eggs that differ by serial number right now. But they are being influenced by these emoticons that people are sending to them. And right now, the eggs don't have the utility. But when the time comes, on May 17th, to be exact, the emote functionality will stop. That's predefined. And then the eggs will begin their incubation period. And on June 1st, they will hatch into birds.
Okay.
And how they hatch is you basically will call the hatch function in our UI. But under the hood, what happens is the egg will be destroyed as the token. And immediately, a new token will be minted to your address, which will essentially be the bird. And so this is how we create this functionality. So you combine the burning and the creation of a new token. And this is also necessary because the eggs are right now based on the Remark 1.0 standard. And in order to have all of that functionality I mentioned, like different items to equip and different traits and so on, the birds have to be on Remark 2.0. And so they are going to be reminted in the new standard when people hatch them between May 17th and June 1st. And so that's basically how we do it. It's always just a custom message sent into the blockchain, and our tool set just knows how to interpret that message.
And it's basically one user can buy one egg. It's not that two users can buy one egg.
No, one user, I mean, one egg. An egg can only have one owner. You can buy as many as you want, but an egg can only have one owner, correct? Yes.
Okay. And the emoji that are going to be sent to the egg, where they come from?
Oh, they are just operations on the blockchain. They don't have to come from anywhere. It's like exactly like you would expect on, I don't know, Facebook when you react to a message. It's exactly the same thing. So if you click heart, it gets a heart. If you click heart again, it turns off the heart. It's just reactions noted on the blockchain, but they are readable by the egg and readable by the tools. So the egg and tools know what to do with them.
Okay. Wow, it sounds really interesting. I really want to see how it's gonna, what is gonna happen in May and how the eggs they are going to become birds. And it's really interesting. How did you came up with the idea of eggs actually and birds?
The eggs are actually because we were launching around Easter, so this was the theme of Easter. But the idea for utility-based NFTs actually come from Ether cards. They launched on Ethereum before us, and they did something similar. So their cards also have some kind of utility that is not yet defined, but it's also going to have some kind of ongoing bonus. Where we innovated here is that we can evolve that bonus. So your bird will have, let's call it sockets, like little holes or like sets of aura around it. And you can actually equip something into that socket. So for example, I can make a trait that's called free sushi swap trade in partnership with SushiSwap. And so I can put that into my bird. And then when I trade on SushiSwap with an account that owns that bird, I'm not going to be paying a fee on SushiSwap. But then if I only have one slot for that trait and a better trait comes up, like, I don't know, liquidity provider bonus on Uniswap, and then I have to make a choice. Am I going to burn the SushiSwap trait in my bird and replace it with the Uniswap one? Or am I going to try and buy another bird that has an open slot and put it in that one? And so this way I can optimize my NFTs, my birds, to give me the best possible yield for my address, depending on what I'm doing on the blockchain. And I can also combine with multiple birds to see what I'll get when I try using these different platforms. So the potential for partnerships is enormous. And you can use all of these protocols to continue to evolve these partnerships, because as you create these new traits, these new bonuses that people can get and equip into their birds, the entire ecosystem evolves. You're not locked into something that you minted once, but you can actually change your birds and optimize them for the blockchain of the present.
Yeah, so basically, if you have a bird that's got a function, actually you could burn it, so, extinguish the function, or you can evolve your birds to take another function.
Yep.
What about selling the bird? Can you sell the bird?
Of course. Yeah, it's just an NFT. You can sell the bird. You can sell any item that the bird owns. Like if the bird has a metal glove, you can sell that metal glove to somebody else. And because we have these conditional rendering logic in our NFTs, the image that your NFTs will emit on the various marketplaces and galleries is going to change based on which NFTs you have. So if I send your bird a hairbrush and you equip that hairbrush, your bird is going to be holding a hairbrush. So we basically built a global NFT game of character improvement, both visual and functional.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think, even the DeFi space that is evolving so quickly is still, I can't really see like real implementation of NFT within the DeFi system. You see a lot, in the art, crypto art and stuff like that. And now, even fashion is coming out, whether we try to implement NFT, but really if you look at DeFi space, you can't really see a lot action there.
Well,
With
you have to be
NFT utility.
Yeah, in terms of NFT utility in DeFi, no, not yet, not yet. This is what we're working towards. Yeah, but I'm also more excited about like, imagine this scenario. You have a metaverse. You have like a virtual space, like just a virtual world. And so imagine now that a billboard in that virtual world is an NFT. And so since I said that NFTs can be divided into fungible tokens, imagine that that billboard has a ton of shareholders, a ton of token holders. And now three corporations come in: Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and Nike. And they can actually mint a new NFT that is the face of that billboard. Yeah. And they can send that NFT to the billboard, into the billboard's inventory. But the billboard is not going to show it yet. Instead, the token holders of that billboard can then decide which one of those to equip. And now it's up to the corporations to bribe the community on which advertisement to show in the virtual space. And now we have community-driven, community-driven corporate financed virtual real estate for sale and use in these virtual ecosystems. And now, if you upgrade this with augmented reality, when we'll all be wearing lenses and glasses that change the world around us, you can imagine real world billboards being ad blocked away so that it's a blank screen. And then you can sell off the NFT of that billboard to anybody else who wants to display something else to you when you're walking around town. And so now this NFT-based future is fully merged with the real world because it actually augments your perception of the real world. And this is something that I'm really excited about. As a gamer and as a VR fan, I find it really fascinating what we can do with provable and trustless digital ownership of non-fungibles in these virtual ecosystems.
Listen, how far you think we are from kind of like, because what I'm seeing is basically now the world is more centralized, vertical, let's say, and here we are talking about a dimension of the world, a metaverse that is more horizontal and is more including different kind of element. They are going to be used, trade, taken, as the utility is more, as people need, as users need. How far you think we are from actually seeing this metaverse, this new world in action with, NFT to be implemented, with all this new technology becoming real and material to people's lives?
We are really, really close. I would say within 5 years, we're going to be very deep in this and all of this stuff. The VR ecosystems that are NFT friendly are already quite large. There's Somnium Space, which has utilized this to a full extent. And some companies have actually, especially during these COVID times, set up replicas of their real world office inside of Somnium Space's world so that you actually walk around in their HQ building in virtual space in the other world. And these pieces of land are being sold for extremely large amounts of money because people absolutely realize that limited virtual space is as valuable as real virtual space. The trick there is going to be deciding which parallel dimension will win. So now it's a competition between these virtual worlds, but I think that we will be first they will fight, but then we'll move to a Polkadot-like future of all of these virtual worlds as well. And you will be able to traverse between them seamlessly without having to disconnect and reconnect and have that awkward experience. So I think we'll also be merging these virtual worlds together eventually as well.
Wow. And listen, talking about finance, right? This is just a question maybe a little bit out of what we discussed, but I'm really interested to understand what you think about that. How do you think the world of finance is changing, considering what DeFi is bringing, but also maybe DeFi at the moment is just imitating the current financial system. And then perhaps what we are going to see going forward, and as cryptocurrency evolve, we are going to see a completely different scenario. What's your views on that?
Yeah, it is a bit too imitative. They're all trying to rebuild the existing financial system, but on the blockchain, which we've proven that it's easy but we've not proven that it's smart. And I think the current DeFi ecosystem is due for a reset, which will happen eventually right now, almost all of DeFi is kind of built on Maker and DAI. And so then there's like two protocols on top of that. And then there's a ton of protocols built on those. And so it's like a huge glass house with glass floors where like the first one you go through will give you enough inertia to just take them all down. It's going to be a bad reset. It's going to be a bad retrace. It's going to filter out a lot of different vegetable themed DeFi project and a lot of different nonsense that's come out. Just today, PooCoin or something like that. But I think that ultimately what will remain is the projects that have some fundamental value. In the last crash in 2018, DAI has held strong. It didn't lose its peg of $1, and it was basically the only project that properly survived. This time we have much more things to do on chain, and many more projects will survive this crash because it's just, the parallel economy that we've built is much more usable. So while I think that it's kind of naive and fragile right now, the DeFi space, I do like the direction in which some of these protocols are moving. And I always love it when I see a protocol think about the bear market as well. Like 95% of these insurance DeFi, InsureFi projects that are coming out will not survive a bear market. They can only pay out claims in the bull market. The same is true for all of the DeFi projects. So when their yields crash and when people start taking out liquidity and when the bank run happens on their pools, all of these projects will die. But there are a few of them that will persist and that will really forward the DeFi ecosystem and improve it as a whole. But we are a long way from that. There's a lot of junk, and there's a lot of theatrics. People like theatrics. People like pretending they have something they don't or something. There's a lot of acting, because a good acting gets you a lot of money these days. And so I'm at the same time, I'm optimistic and disillusioned about the DeFi space.
I think it goes back to what you said at the beginning about try to do your own research, trying to read, try to understand. And I think these will probably be the only skills and the only defense for people that really want to evolve into this space without getting burned, is really just to sit down and dedicate hours to understand the use cases, why a project is creative, what it's trying to do. And there is also the element to kind of experiment a little bit, because, you can read, but until, you open your MetaMask address, you see how things connect. You don't do it. You might lose money, right? But you have to do it, because otherwise it's too theoretical. I mean, this is the way that I see it. I'm not sure if you agree with that, but you kind of have to try things to see what they mean. It's not the same if you just read.
Absolutely. You cannot, that's the same with everything. You have to learn by doing. You have to first get educated on how to recognize the signs and everything, and that'll take months. But then you absolutely have to dive in, and you will make some expensive mistakes.
Yeah.
I gambled away a full Bitcoin on BitMEX in my early days, and I live with that regularly, a regular reminder. So you will make expensive mistakes, but they will be educational mistakes. I get a lot of inquiries every day from people who were scammed by companies presenting themselves as regulated by the FCA or something like that. And then they'll tell me, like, how do I trace this money? How do I find the ones who stole it from me? And then like a cherry on top, the message ends with, I just got contacted by somebody on Viber telling me that if I send them 1% of what I got stolen, they will send me everything else back. And so you can see that there's a class of people who are just dying to believe anything other people tell them. And this is why I emphasize reading, so that you learn as much as you can from different perspectives and different materials, and form some kind of critical thinking, so that you're not just, like, somebody arrives, tells you, hey, Ripple is going to go 100x by next weekend. You should buy all of this Ripple that I have to sell you. Somebody who spent a bit of time reading about Ripple will automatically know that this is not true. But somebody who just wants to make money quickly and is diving in to, start earning their skill without actually doing the research, they might fall for it, because it really does look like it, especially when the different voodoo doctors of technical analysis start throwing out these different arrows and colorful schemes. It does look quite optimistic to most people. So yeah, reading is important, experience is important, but most of all, I think just a healthy dose of skepticism. Double check everything you find, double check everything people tell you, and never, ever, ever be afraid to ask questions. Like, there's no stupid questions in crypto, because the whole space is both extremely complicated and stupid. And a lot of people will be happy to answer any kind of questions you have, because nobody who's honest in the space wants to see people get scammed, because it hurts the whole space.
Exactly, Bruno. Thank you so much for sharing all this precious information inside with us. Listen, for the people that would like to get in touch with you, would like to find you, would like to follow you, where can they go?
They can follow me on Twitter at Bitfalls. They can hit me up if they want to learn about the NFT project. They can hit me up on hello@rmrk.app. And also on Twitter at remarkapp, at RMRK app. And if you just want to talk about Web3 Foundation, getting funding for your project, learning more about Polkadot and blockchains in general, it's just Bruno at web3.foundation.
Okay, fantastic, Bruno. Amazing. It was great to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here.
Okay, this is everything from the Financial Fox today, and I really hope that you enjoyed the interview. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and I will see you next week.